Hey, what's up guys? I'm Ben with Rough Country, and today we're working on a 2011 Ford F-150. Now what we're going to do with the truck today is actually just get the rake out of it. We're going to install Rough Country's 2.5-inch strut extension, you can see here, on the front of this truck on your factory strut. This is a great cost-effective way to get lift on your truck for a larger tire. So let's get started on the installation. First step is of course to read the instruction sheet, or at least look at them, so you can see the first step for these spacers is to knock in the studs. Once you've got all 6 studs knocked in, your strut extensions are ready to be mounted on the struts. If you have an electronic power steering truck, the first thing you need to do is unplug these connectors. We don't want to have any problems during alignment or any codes flashing. Once those are unplugged, we can start disassembling the truck. The first thing we're going to disassemble is our sway bar link. Next, we move to our tie rod end. We'll remove that fastener, and then the ball joint. We're not going to completely remove it, but we are going to loosen it because we'll have to knock that loose and we don't want it flying out of there. Once we have the ball joint knocked loose, we can knock our tie rod end loose and remove it from the knuckle. With the tie rod end removed, we can let the knuckle pivot over and remove the lower strut bolt. Once that strut bolt is out, we're going to put some support on that axle. Now we're going to use a pry bar, pull down on the control arm, and remove the ball joint and control that instead of it flying out of there. Once the knuckle's out of the way, we're going to remove our fasteners on the top of the strut. There's only 3, so it doesn't take very long. Once those fasteners are off, we can remove the strut out of the housing. With the strut out, now we're going to install Rough Country's strut extension on the top. Once you have the strut extension on, it should look like this, and it's ready to go back onto the truck. So you'll put in the upper mount first. You may have to spin it a little bit to line up those bolts or the studs on top of the strut extension. On 2009 and newer trucks, you will need a pry bar to put a little pressure on the lower mount of the strut to pop it into that control arm. Once you've got the strut into the control arm, simply reinstall the lower strut bolt. With that bolt in, our next step is to reinstall the upper ball joint. And you'll put a little pressure onto the coil spring and the control arm with a pry bar, pull that down to the taper, and start the fastener. Next is the tie rod end. We'll push it into the knuckle down to the taper as well. Then we'll head up to our ball joint. Now we're going to tighten it down. And you'll need a wrench for the lower piece there to keep that from spinning as you get it tight. Now we'll tighten down our tie rod end. And once our tie rod end is tightened, we'll go back to our lower strut bolt and we're going to tighten that down as well. Our next step is to tighten down the fasteners on the top of the strut, tighten down those 3 bolts, then we'll move to our sway bar link and we're done except for our power steering plug-ins. We need to reconnect those, and guys, we are finished with the install. Now it's time to step back and just take a look at how much better our truck looks with Rough Country's 2.5-inch leveling kit on there and the new tires and wheels. For Rough Country Suspensions, I'm Ben, and we'll see you later.